the Ottawa Senators, and I owe you an apology as we move into our next segment here, the early returns. We sat on that trade deadline show on this very channel, and I said I did not like the Dylan Cozens trade to Ottawa, and you said you loved it. And boy, was I wrong. 5 points in 6 games, looking like a perfect fit for the Ottawa Senators. I believe they're 7-2-1 in their last 11. 7-3-1, excuse me, in their last 11. So they've been playing really well. They're in the playoff picture right now. It seems like they have that first wild card spot locked up. What have you made of Dylan Cozens and his fit with this group so far?
Well, I think first off, I mean, when they traded for Dylan Cozens, when I looked at a player like Dylan Cozens, and I've loved this kid since he was on Team Canada for World Juniors, and they called him the workhorse from Whitehorse. And you see the blue collar game he kind of plays, and I think his style of game fits better with the Ottawa Senators, and it does. They play a blue collar game. They play physical. They have guys that play on the edge, and I think Dylan Cozens has that ability, and you're seeing the chance he's getting as well. I mean, he's playing on the first power play. He's just kind of fit in seamlessly with that team. And I think he's getting a good opportunity. And sometimes getting that good opportunity and a change of scenery for a guy and a fresh start is all you need. And that's exactly what they're getting from Dylan Cozens right now.
And with that, when a guy who's been in an organization for, a few years, I'm blank, maybe it was 4 years, I think he spent in Buffalo.
Yeah, roughly.
4 or 5. I might be blanking on that. Or wrong on that, so the chat can let me know if I'm wrong. I love the Daily Faceoff chat. They always are quick to fact check. But when you're traded midseason, when you can tell watching Cozens that his heart wasn't necessarily in it in Buffalo anymore, what it does to rejuvenate a guy, I mean, you can speak to it firsthand. Like, I think you're seeing that right now with him, but was there a team that you went to midway through a year or a team that you were traded to, maybe when you were over the team that you had been on? I don't know what time of year that would have been, but can you talk about what that does just to, the mindset and the mentality?
Yeah, I mean, you're going from a team that, I mean, let's be honest, is playing meaningless games. You're not really, you're not going to make the playoffs. What are you really playing for, I guess? And all guys want to play for a purpose, and they want to play the playoffs and win a Stanley Cup. And so he gets a chance to go to Ottawa, and he knows that they're in a playoff race and they have a chance to make the playoffs and go on a deep run. You never know. And so I think that automatically, mentally, is a boost. And I know for me, when I was traded from, I think Ottawa to LA, and we were in a position in Ottawa where we probably weren't going to make the playoffs, and getting a chance to go play for the Kings and knowing that they were going to make the playoffs and possibly have a deep run, automatically you get a boost of energy and a boost of life, and you want to impress. You want to show this team that's traded for you want to show them what you're made of. And I think Dylan Cozens is getting that chance. There's been a lot of speculation about his decline and all this, and people talk about that. And I'm sure he hears that and he knows that, and he gets to go to Ottawa and he gets to prove people wrong and prove Ottawa right.
Yeah. And listen, I think that's the argument, right? Was the 31 goal season an outlier? Or is that what he could be, right? I think because that's the one season that stands out in the positive, and he's been like a 15, 16 goal guy every other year. So it's almost like the opposite factor. Like when guys are hot and they have that one down year, and it's like, oh, were they just playing that well? And this is really who they are. You know what I mean? You hear those conversations all the time. But let's talk about the flip side, the teams at the deadline that didn't do enough, that you're not seeing some great hockey out of right now. Who's a team that you would look back at March 7th and be like, man, they were right there. If only they added this or that, they could be that much better.
Well, and I'll use two different teams to compare in the contrast of it, but I think the Winniepg Jets are in a position where I think they should have done more.
Okay.
I look at this team, and they've been in their last 10 games, they're 5-4-1. They're not lighting it on fire. I think they've slowed down a little bit. And, you look at the Florida Panthers, they make the trade for the Seth. Right? They make the trade for Seth Jones, right? And yes, has he been fantastic? No. But at the same time, they lose Aaron Ekblad.
Yeah.
And they don't have Matthew Tkachuk. They don't have Brad Marchand in. What is that going to do for Seth Jones when those guys come back in the lineup? It's probably going to help, right? So, I mean, I look at the Winniepg Jets and I see a guy like Neil Pionk. He's out week to week. Do they have the depth and guys to, carry that weight of him being out? I don't know, because these are the things that, when you make these trades, you make them for depth too. You make them for guys that if your top guys do go out, you're able to withstand that. And I don't know if the Winniepg Jets are able to do that. I know they're going to make the playoffs, But what's going to happen in the first and second round when, they don't have the next guy to step up and that depth that they didn't make for that trade, or they didn't make that trade to help their team in the long run. So that's where I see the compare and contrast of a team like the Florida Panthers, where they have Seth Jones. And then you look at a team like Winnipeg, where, are they one injury away from being completely depleted?
And let me ask you this question too, because I've been having this conversation a lot. And honestly, this has been going on for years, I feel like, but it's starting to change in my mind. Everyone says championship teams are built through the middle. Do you think that is still the case? Or is there another area of the way that teams are built that you think is more fit to win a championship? Like, I'll just go first, if you don't mind. Like,
yeah, go ahead.
Colby and I on our show, we always say you got to build out a blue line now. And I think Vegas was maybe the first team that had that big, mean blue line. And last year, obviously the Florida Panthers are deep down the middle as well, just like Vegas was. But the Panthers, the way they defended and their physicality, it's so hard to get by them and get through them that I think maybe it's starting to change a bit, where the teams are starting to build out their blue lines a little bit more. And then you can, have that goaltender who might not need to be the $6-7 million goalie that can help you win, even though Bobrovsky last year was.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it goes both sides. I think you can build through either or.
Mm-hmm. Well, if you're building a team, I'm putting you on the hot seat. Which one? You're
putting me on the hot seat. I think I'm building through the middle. I know I'm biased. I know I'm biased because I was a center.
Yep.
and I look at the Florida Panthers as an example. You look at their team, you look at the guys down the middle, and if you have centermen like that, if you have centermen like Sasha Barkov or even they call him Mini Barkov and Anton Lundell, you have guys like that, it's going to make your D better. It's going to protect your D more. And I'm not saying, your D core is going to be terrible. You're going to have some solid D back there and some maybe a top four. But if you have centermen like Sasha Barkov and Sam Bennett and all these guys in the Florida Panthers, it protects your D. If you have, because the centerman, as is almost in a way some shifts like a third defenseman. He's everywhere. Yeah. He's all over the ice. He has to be responsible defensively. So, the Florida Panthers prove that, I think. I think down the middle, they're probably arguably the best in the league. And you can look at even the Dallas Stars as well. You look at their center iceman. And their D is pretty much everything.
Yeah.
But I would say if you can build it through the center ice, I think it can mask maybe not having, an elite defense core.
Yeah, and McDoust, I think in our chat here, says the Oilers, McDavid, Draisaitl, Nugent Hopkins, Henrique built right down the middle. They're one win away.
Exactly.
Last year from the Cup final. It's a good example, obviously, and they're probably the best team down the middle in the NHL. I don't know if anyone would argue that, just as far as skill goes.
Yeah. You can argue probably a few different teams down the middle.
But skill, I'm saying, pure skill, just based on
pure skill. Yeah. Yes, for sure.
What's up, hockey fans? If you enjoyed that video, then you need to be hitting the subscribe button right here at Daily Faceoff. Exclusive interviews and analysis from our hockey insider Frank Saravalli, fantasy updates from Brock Sagan, and a daily live show at noon Eastern, Monday through Friday. You don't want to miss any of the fantastic content, so hit that subscribe button.